This all went down a few years ago. I was living by myself in this tiny, kind of rundown apartment on the outskirts of the city. The rent was a steal, and now I know why. The building was ancient, and the walls were so thin you could practically hear your neighbor thinking. It wasn't the kind of place you'd imagine something truly terrifying happening. It was just quiet. Until it wasn't. One night, I woke up out of a dead sleep. Do you know that feeling? When there's no sound, no nightmare you can recall, but your body just jolts you awake. Something felt wrong. It was that primal hair-on-the-back feeling that you're being watched. I glanced at my phone. The screen glowed, 2:43 a.m., way too early. I rolled over, trying to force myself back to sleep, telling myself it was nothing. And that's when I heard it, a soft tapping sound. It wasn't coming from the window, which would have been scary enough. It wasn't a pipe in the wall. No, this was distinct. It was coming from my front door. Tap, tap, then a pause, then another tap. My first thought was maybe it was a neighbor, someone who had a bit too much to drink and got the wrong apartment. It had happened before. But this tapping was different. It was too light, too deliberate, almost polite. Like whoever was out there didn't want to make a scene. They didn't want anyone else in the hallway to hear. Just me. I froze, lying perfectly still in my bed, straining to listen over the sound of my own heartbeat. My apartment was small, so the front door was only a few feet from my bedroom. Then, a whisper slithered through the crack under the door. "Hey, I know you're awake." The blood in my veins turned to ice. It was a man's voice. It was low, calm, almost playful. And it was right there, just on the other side of that thin piece of wood. My mind started racing. Who was it? How did they know I was awake? I hadn't made a sound. I stayed silent, my breath caught in my throat. I was too scared to move, too scared to even breathe. The whisper came again, slower this time, drawn out. "I saw your light turn on." But that was impossible. My lights were off. Time. My room was pitch black, except for the tiny glow from my phone when I checked the time. Had he seen that? Was he watching my window from the street below? The thoughts sent a fresh wave of panic through me. The window, my blinds were open just a crack. He could have been watching me this whole time. My mind was a chaotic mess. What do I do? Do I call the police? But what if he hears me on the phone? What if that sets him off? The voice had been calm, but it felt like a predator toying with its prey. I couldn't risk making him angry. Then the whisper came again, but this time the sound was different. It was lower, closer to the floor. Like he was crouched down, putting his mouth right against the gap at the bottom of the door. "Just open it. I just want to talk. Talk at 3 in the morning. No thank you." My heart was a drum against my ribs, so loud I was convinced he could hear it, too. With hands that trembled so badly I could barely control them, I reached for my phone again. I couldn't risk making a call. So I opened my messages and texted my friend who lived across town. My fingers fumbled on the screen. Someone at my door, whispering, "Call police." Don't text back. I hit send, praying she would see it, praying she would understand the urgency. Just as the message went through, a new sound made me jump, the doorknob. It started to turn slowly, deliberately. Not a violent jiggle, but a slow, methodical test. He was checking to see if it was locked. My stomach dropped. I always locked my door, a habit drilled into me since I was a kid. Thank God, I heard the click of the lock holding firm. There was a pause, and then I heard breathing. Heavy, raspy breaths, right up against the wood of the door. It was like he was trying to smell the air inside my apartment, trying to sense my presence. Inhale, exhale, long and slow. It was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute, the breathing stopped. The silence that followed was somehow even worse. Was he gone? Was he waiting? I stayed put, my phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline, every muscle in my body coiled tight. Minutes ticked by. Nothing. The silence stretched on. Finally, a sliver of courage, or maybe just desperation, pushed me to my feet. I had to know. I had to see if he was still there. I crept out of my bedroom, moving like a ghost across the cheap carpet. I approached the front door, my every step calculated to be silent. The peephole, my one window to the outside world. My heart was in my throat. I told myself to be rational. He was probably gone. This was just a final check for peace of mind. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I leaned forward, trying not to make a single sound. I brought my eye up to the tiny glass lens, and my world shattered. All I could see was an eye. A single wide, unblinking eye staring right back at me. It filled the entire peephole. He had been waiting. He knew I would look. I let out a strangled gasp and stumbled backward, falling hard onto the floor. Skash. As I hit the ground, his whisper came again, this time filled with a horrifying sense of victory. There you are. I didn't think. I just reacted. I scrambled on all fours back into my bedroom and slammed the door shut, fumbling with the lock until it clicked into place. I collapsed onto the floor, my back against the door, shaking uncontrollably. I just sat there, clutching my phone, tears streaming down my face, listening for the sound of him breaking down the front door, listening for his voice again. But there was only silence. A few minutes later, the most beautiful sound in the world cut through the night. Sirens, getting louder and louder as they got closer. Relief washed over me in a tidal wave. My friend had come through. When the police finally knocked a loud, authoritative knock that was nothing like the gentle tapping from before I could barely speak, I managed to tell them I was okay and unlocked the door. They swept the hallway, the stairwell, the entire floor. They found no one. It was like he had vanished into thin air, but he had left something behind. As one of the officers was inspecting my front door, he found it. A tiny piece of paper, folded neatly and wedged into the doorframe, almost invisible. He carefully opened it. Inside, scrawled in messy, angry handwriting, was a single sentence. Next time, don't make me wait so long. I broke my lease and moved out a week later. I couldn't sleep in that apartment another night. I couldn't even look at the front door without seeing that eye staring back at me. To this day, I have no idea who that was or what he wanted, but I've learned one thing. I never, ever ignore a strange sound in the middle of the night. And I always check that my doors are locked.